Robert Plank Show, episode 398. 5 entrepreneurial skills you should develop or sharpen as a work-at-home internet marketer. Hey everyone, it's Robert Plank and welcome back to the show. We're going to talk today about the 5 entrepreneurial skills you should either develop from nothing or sharpen and get to the top of your game as a work-at-home internet marketer. And as we're getting started up here, I have a quick kind of confession to make, and it's this. It's that I thought I was running out of ideas for the show. Honestly, this time last year, I thought that the show was pretty much just about over. We'd made it to 100 episodes. I had just been recording one a week, just myself, just like this. And I really thought that I was sort of tapped out, that I had talked about all of my kind of stories, all of my insights, all of my products. I thought that I was at the end until we then moved things to an interview model format. And that's when I reached out to a ton of different amazing guests and I said, let's have you on for 20 minutes. Let's chit chat about who you are, what you do, what makes you stand out, your life takeaways, your case studies, your clients, your cool tips and starting points for people who are looking for help, the number one thing you see going wrong in your marketplace, all that fun stuff. And what I kind of came across were a lot of other people like me. Because here's the thing is there are sort of the internet marketer bizot types who they don't really have much to contribute or much in the way of skills other than being a mover around of traffic. What does that mean? It means that there are people that have a completely legitimate, completely okay model of making money. What do? They have these online assets. They have an email list, maybe a YouTube channel, maybe a Facebook group or a fan page, and maybe Instagram following also. And what they do is they go and find offers that solve people's problems, right? They find an app, a course, a piece of software, a book, and then they just use their platform, their following to promote that, make a quick commission. Great way of making money. But here's the thing is I kind of started from a different starting point, which was I had an existing skill. I'm a computer programmer. And I got frustrated early on when I was a teenager and I was a kid because I realized that there was definitely a cap to how much money I could make from that. And there was definitely, I'd have to work my way up and do a lot of stuff. And I had 2 day jobs and they both were amazing. And I was just bored with them because I got a heck of a lot done ahead of time in those jobs. But I definitely made it a point to stand out and do more than what was expected of me. And I definitely picked up a ton of useful skills from that day job stuff that I now apply to my internet marketing business. And one thing that comes to mind, one example is that I would sometimes, in my job, I would do computer programming stuff. And I would sometimes have to deal with other vendors, right? This was a university. We used different pieces of software and things like that. And I'd have to learn some new software platform for managing students' email accounts, or we started using some sort of streaming video server at one point, and I had to learn the ins and outs of that. And sometimes when things didn't go right, I would then have to go and talk to some of these vendors. I'd have to shoot them an email. But then what I began doing many times, if I had to show some software vendor a bug, or if I was stuck, or if there's a feature I wanted or something wasn't working in general, I would just open up this tool called Camtasia Recorder. It's what I'm using right now to record the podcast. And I would just record my screen and talk to them and say, hey, this is Robert from CSU Stanislaus, and I'm using this piece of software here, and here's what's happening. Can you help? And just make it a quick 60-second or less video, shoot it over in an email, and that was just a great way of standing out. So when I've been interviewing these different people on the show, I've noticed that they all are in different parts of their lives. They all have different business models, and it's not just the usual biz op, promote some offers that I'm used to seeing. What's good about all this is we can see different perspectives, and we can see that some of these sort of, I don't know if you'd call them like career people or just people who started from a skill and then built a following around that, as opposed to just jumping in as a business person, as a marketer. They do a lot of different things than say the plain old internet marketers do, and they have different business models. So some people are just flat out keynote speakers. They just show up on podcasts to build their following, to get more traffic, and a sale to them is getting a speaking gig at a huge event. To get a huge event, make thousands and thousands of dollars, just go there and give a 90-minute talk, a 30-minute talk, and there you go, they get paid. Other people, they had written a book, and all they were doing 20 hours a day was just promoting the book, hopping on podcasts and promoting that. I've had people who sell apps and software as a service kinds of things, and even people who are just trying to further their careers. So the reason why I bring all this different things up is because the number one skill that you need to have is the skill of selling. Even if you don't think you're a business owner, internet marketer, if you use the internet, you are an internet marketer. And so a lot of people out there, for example, work day jobs, and maybe they work for some startup or some small business, and maybe part of their job or part of what they do is to go out there and spread the word about what that company does or about what the app does. So think about that. Even if you work for some kind of a startup, wouldn't it be great if you took the initiative and got yourself booked on some of these podcast interviews and just explained to new people, to fresh blood, to new prospects, things like that, what the heck it is that you're selling, what it is that your software does. And another common thing in the startup world or with apps and things like that is many times there will be an app that you can get for free, try it out for a while, and then you can request a demo. You can request where someone will meet with you on a Skype call or on a GoToMeeting or something like that and show their screen and show how to use a piece of software, and even sometimes pass you the screen and walk you through using this piece of software. So think about that. In order to demo something like that, to sell that, you need to know how to handle objections, answer questions, make things simple, make things entertaining, motivate someone to buy or to keep using that app. So in any sort of context, selling is so important. Who cares or who even knows that your book or your app exists unless you show up on different shows or unless you meet with people one-on-one or do whatever to get the word out. And so one of the best things I've ever done in my business is email every day or close to it. So get good at sending broadcast emails to your list. Build an email list. Even in this day and age, an email list is still the best thing you could do to build for your business. So get in the hang of sending out quick emails, sending people to offers, podcast episodes, to blog posts of yours, to webinar replays, and even straight up sales letters. Get used to making money from email. Get your business cash flow positive. So selling means a lot of different things, right? Selling means sending out sales emails, email marketing, being good at making up a quick landing page and knowing what words to say, what things not to say, sales letters. And as you see more and more of these things called sales letters, you might notice that there's a structure to them and there's usually not a ton of variation as far as the words. Now the design, things like that, well, even that kind of, it seems like you kind of see a lot of that over and over. It seems like you see enough web pages and you can almost tell without looking at the source code, was this web page built on Wix, WordPress, ClickFunnels, or even specific WordPress themes and things like that? Like, is this a Genesis theme? You see enough web pages and you can almost identify what it was built on. And then you see the words and you can look at the words at that. Okay, well, they start off with some kind of headline. They introduce me to a problem. They twist the knife, make the problem worse, lead to a solution, explain the offer, break down the pieces of the offer, then tell me to buy. Hey, that's kind of a similar structure. And then even if you look at things like headlines or phrases, you might notice that, for example, headlines might say things like, who else wants to blank, or how to do blank, or the sentences and bullet points might be short sentences, short bullet points. Use things called bucket brigades to start with sentences with things like now or you must be wondering to move people along. And even you might think of selling as, say, webinar pitches or as podcast soft sales. It's kind of like, explaining your offer, explaining your product in a couple of minutes. Especially if you're on a podcast with someone else, you might as well talk up your company, talk up your book, talk up your product to get people interested in it. Because if you're not interested in it, who the heck else is going to be? So we have courses for all these different things. For sales letters, we have fastfoodcopywriting.com. For webinar stuff, we have webinarcrusher.com. For podcasts, we have podcastcrusher.com. But whatever your situation is, whatever the medium is, if you're running your own company, you're employed for your own company, if you're just speaking to further your career to make, how cool would your resume look if you had all these speaking gigs? Well, it's possible now because of this thing called internet and podcasting. There are so many podcasts with social media. People are so accessible that it's easy to reach out and get at least on a handful of these shows. And then as you get more used to selling, as you try out different material, you'll figure out what your so-called hot material is. And as you subscribe to other people's email lists, as you see their Facebook ads, man, I love seeing Facebook ads, by the way, or you see their sales letters, you're going to start to pick up on things that made you personally pay attention. You're going to start building this thing called a swipe file. So let me just open up my swipe file here. And man, I should probably have an episode just on swipe files, but let me list a couple of things that I kind of have in my swipe file. So it says forward, colon, and then in parentheses, no subject. So I got an email once that was like forward, no subject. Oh, I could use that. Or price increase, or the word ninja, or the wrong way to blank, or start blank, or stop blank and start blank, or this isn't just whatever. This isn't just podcasting, right? Or just, do you feel like you haven't tapped into the magic of blank yet? Or are you in the blank club with podcasting yet? Do you want to be? So sometimes I'll just see a headline or an email message and I'll kind of reword it, or I'll think about like, how would I word it? Or I'll say, well, how would I use that for webinars or for podcasts? Or I'll leave a blank in there. So I'll say like, do this next time you see a certain type of person. I honestly can't remember if they were saying like, do this next time you see a plumber or something, but how about that? Do this the next time you see a chiropractor patient or something like that. How to create a blank that actually converts, or last call, or you forgot your $250. So if you have something where like they get an extra $200 or something for free bonus, hey, you forgot your $200. Or if there's like a trial period for your product, think about that. Trial period for a month, maybe it's $100 a month product, you're giving them $1 trial. Hey, you forgot your $99 for free. So that's what a swipe file is. And the more you get used to selling in whatever form it is, the more you pay attention and enjoy being sold to, the more of this swipe file you'll build up. Not a huge thing. I don't save whole web pages or pictures. I don't even save the exact headline that got me interested. It's just what got the gears turning, the juices flowing. And even sometimes I'll be listening to like everyday conversation, or watch a TV show, or hear the radio, or hear a podcast, and someone will just offhandedly say an interesting remark or an interesting analogy, and then I'll be just like, oh, well, that's something that, even though they didn't even know they were putting that out there, I picked that up, that got me to pay attention, I'm going to use that. And if I don't use it, I end up deleting it. Like that whole list I mentioned, that was only maybe 10 or so bullet points out of maybe 100 plus. And what I end up doing is I add them at the top of my Evernote document of my swipe file. And then as if I feel like it's getting too large, I'll go to the very bottom. And if there's nothing in the bottom 10 or 20 lines, I'll just delete those. So that way it's not just I'm piling up stuff, I'm using stuff. Speaking of using stuff, so number one skill for entrepreneurs is selling, because you have to get the word out for whatever it is you're involved in. You have to be more of a marketer than you are of a creator. So all these content marketers like your Neil Patel types will tell you to spend 80% of your time marketing your content, even if it's just blog posts, but 80% of your time marketing, 20% of your time creating. And if you say, oh, well, that doesn't work for me, I believe in creating value, well, it's just percentages. No one's telling you to spend 10 minutes on creating something and then 40 minutes marketing it. Maybe you spend 2 days making it and 8 days marketing it, whatever the ratio is for you. No one's saying to cut corners or take shortcuts or make crap, but market more than you create. All right, so and then also creating can be marketing. And I'm talking about content creation. I'm talking about writing, speaking, being on video. And what's really great is the more that you get good at writing and being on video and things like that, you're going to start to notice structures of things. You're going to notice, oh yeah, they made that video and it was kind of just split up into three pieces. Or they made this blog post and it was really just answering 10 quick questions. So once you pay attention to and you notice the structure of other people's content, it'll become easier for you to just crank something out. And you just say, all right, I've got an idea. I'll just use this piece of content. I'll unpack a few items and there we go. Figuring out like the step-by-step that it takes to explain something to somebody. For example, in my case, the step-by-step process to make a WordPress blog. How do I do that without taking 3 hours to explain it, without making it boring, without listing too much stuff, without overwhelming people, but also having the information that I need? By the way, our course on WordPress is wpcrusher.com. And then as far as content creation, it's also important for you to be good at being a content reader. And the most successful internet marketers and most successful business people at all, they read a ton of stuff. You always hear about Bill Gates. He'll go up to some cabin for the weekend with a stack of like 30 books, read them all, get a lot out of it. But I think that what's important for you is to always have this constant flow of information, books, podcasts, courses, whatever, but then also distill that information down into just a handful of bullet points, a handful of actionable items that you can begin using right now. Because there's nothing worse than going to a conference or taking a course and taking 50 pages of notes and then never looking at them again because it's 50 whole pages to sift through. Instead of writing all that, instead of paying more attention to the notes you're taking, why not absorb what's right there in front of you? And if something sounds really, really important, then write it down. But if you say, am I just writing something down just because everyone else is, or I'm just used to writing stuff down, or I'm just writing down an interesting tidbit or a fact or a statistic, is that actually going to be useful? If not, don't write it down. There's way too much information out there for you to try to write it all down. So skill number 1, selling. Skill number 2, content creation. And that doesn't mean you have to be one of those people who wakes up early and writes for 500 words first thing in the morning, although that's a great idea. But get better at creating some sort of content. If it's writing, if it's podcasting like this, you can focus on, at least for me, I focus on speaking more slowly and of not saying and of not saying half a sentence and then halfway through kind of switch gears and start a new sentence. I still do that sometimes, but it's a constant improvement of becoming a better content creator, a better person, and even focusing on, well, let me get the content more dialed in. Let me look at my Google Analytics or my WordPress stats or my AW stats to see what things people are searching. Look on forums, look on Facebook groups, and get more to the content people want, and then get better at cranking out a lot of it, getting further and further ahead of it. So maybe you can even be the kind of person that, I would love to publish a LinkedIn article once a day on top of the daily podcast, the daily emails, on top of all that stuff. I would love to also publish something written every day and even do some guest blog posts. So that's kind of my own personal goal that I aspire to. Skill number 3, basic website creation. In this day and age, there's no excuse to not know at least how to make a simple website. No one's saying you have to know every single nook and cranny, every platform. No one's saying you have to be a programmer, but at least know how to log into your WordPress site, how to add content to your WordPress site. Maybe a little more advanced would be how to make a funnel with your WordPress site. And maybe even a little more advanced would be how to manage a membership site, how to manage paying members. Keeping in mind that it's okay to know some stuff to get the hang of it, to get it all the bugs ironed out, and then have that step-by-step task list and then hand it off to someone else. But I just think that in this day and age, you need to be somewhat self-sufficient when you make your WordPress site. And that doesn't mean you have to do everything, but maybe you can do the simple stuff or the quick stuff or the things that are urgent for you right now. That way you don't have to wait for someone else. And our course, again, for that is wpcrusher.com. And then if you want to know how to make your whole sales funnel, like your opt-in page, sales letter, membership site, all that, our course for that is incomemachine.com, just so that you have all the URLs there for you. All right, so skill number 3 was basic website creation. Skill number 2 was content creation. And then skill number 1 was selling. Now, how about skill number 4? Productivity. There's so much in here to unpack, but we're not going to unpack it all. But once you do any sort of task a handful of times, you're going to get used to the workflow. You're going to know what are the shortcuts, what are the do's and don'ts, what buttons do I push in what order to crank out a podcast, to record a podcast interview, to broadcast a webinar, to edit and publish a video, to put a video on YouTube, to stream on Facebook Live. Of course, for that is videosalestactics.com. So think about the workflow. Think about those repetitive tasks that you do. And if you wrote down even just 5 to 10 quick items on your checklist, maybe that would really help to simplify things. Maybe you wouldn't make as many mistakes. You wouldn't have to think as much, and you'd do it faster and be more excited to do it because it'd be like, oh yeah, I've only got these 5 things to check off instead of just trying to make sense of a huge mess. I think that productivity, a lot of it has to do with your mindset and clearing out the crap, the self-doubt, the negative self-talk, having a bad support system, and getting focused and being passionate about what you do and about getting into the habit of completing things, about doing things that make money again and again, and having that positive reinforcement from, happy customers and happy clients and things like that. Focus, motivation, chunking, so that again, if you have a lot to do, let's say that I have 5 or 10 podcast episodes to post to my blog or schedule out, I'm not going to do those one at a time. I'm going to edit 5 or 10. I'm going to upload those 5 or 10. I'm going to schedule those 5 or 10 and then be done with it. That way I didn't have to start 5 times. I didn't have to start 10 times. I just grabbed 5 or 10 things, put it on there, scheduled it. And this all revolves around systems thinking. One of my favorite business books ever is The E-Myth. And there's like, you can narrow it down to like 3 or 4 easy lessons in that book. And one of the best ones is to have a checklist. And Michael Gerber, he tells 2 different stories. One is he went to a barber, had a really great service, went again, had really bad service. Or at the very least, just there were nice touches that were done in his first visit that were missing the second visit because there was no checklist written down. Compared to when he went to a hotel, then he asked where was a good place nearby to eat, and the person at the desk had been asked this question 100 times, so he's like, "Yep, here's the place. Just go down there." And he said, "I recommend ordering this if you're not sure." There was a well-lit walkway taking him down. The housekeeping, every time they cleaned the toilet, changed the sheets, gave him new towels, they went through a checklist. They were more organized, even though something as simple as just a 5-item checklist seems simple to you, but it ensures that you'll be consistent. And then that ensures that you can measure and see if things were done, and then even delegate them to someone else. And I would consider delegating as part of productivity, or just to know where if something's taking over your life or you don't like doing it or it takes too long or whatever, hand it off to someone else, but then have that checklist in place so that way you're not spending more time monitoring them than they are doing the work, if that makes sense. Because I tried outsourcing without a checklist, without a system, without clear tasks, and then I wasn't really sure what I was getting back. And so by doing the stuff yourself and then knowing what steps need to be taken, it becomes easier to just hand something off to someone else and you know exactly what they're doing and you know if they're doing a good job or not. And then finally, a thing with productivity is just the skill of troubleshooting, right? And troubleshooting, you might think of that as like something like maybe an engineer does, or like someone who builds bridges or works on computers. But troubleshooting just basically means where's the problem at, right? Or maybe like a car mechanic might do it, but where's the problem at? And what was a huge just revelation for me is when I was a kid, I built computers, and so did my dad, but sometimes we take it in and sometimes like something's really weird with the hardware or something's up. So sometimes we would take the computer into the computer place, I guess the computer repair shop, not sure what you'd call it. But what happened was my dad would take his, and I couldn't take my computer in because I was just a kid, didn't have a car, didn't have money. He took his computer in and he noticed that if there was a problem, all they would do was just start swapping things out. They'd swap out the graphics card, swap out the hard drive, swap out the power supply, swap out motherboard, just swap things out until it worked. And they said, okay, well, it didn't work with this piece. But when we change this one piece, now it's broken. Now we have something to go on. And usually, if you ever hit your head against the wall when your website didn't work, there were two things you could do. You could either give up and just never do it again. A lot of people do that. Or you say, well, what change did I make to the website to make it crash? Or if I delete this plugin, does the website come back? Or if I restore from a backup, does the plugin come back? If I change the theme, does the plugin come back? Or just try different things until it works. And this avoids you going down the rabbit hole, because I know that it's tempting, right? To have a deadline, to have a project, and then something goes wrong. Next thing you know, you spent 2 weeks trying to fix your website. Well, now you missed your deadline. Now you didn't make your launch. Now you didn't make money. So it's better to get the handle of troubleshooting equipment. And if you ever, I'm not saying it, when you begin recording podcasts on a microphone, when you begin appearing on camera for YouTube videos, when you begin recording with Camtasia or making tutorials, whatever it is that you do, whether you're someone who's good at turning around a business or teaching weight loss or teaching hypnosis, whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to have to figure out some of this stuff. And you might have to, buy a microphone or buy a camera, and then find out you need to buy extra equipment or need to do something special, like install a driver to make it work. Or maybe you'll buy a microphone and say, oh, that worked for me then, but now I'm going to kind of throw it out and get something different and better. And so there's definitely that skill of troubleshooting, of having a sense of urgency, but then also if something's taking too long, just kind of stopping it and just getting things good enough where you can meet your deadlines, where you make money, where you're not wasting weeks or months doing something that's not worth your while. So something I've always wanted to do is unify all of my membership sites, right? You log into robertplank.com, you get everything you bought from that company. You log into doubleagentmarketing.com, you get all the courses you bought from that company. Nice idea, but it would take 6 to 12 months to do it. And what would be the reason? Just for perfectionism's sake, just to be more organized? We couldn't actually point that to making any additional money. So why not just keep things as it is and get it done? What's most important is, are the trains running? Is the money coming in? And not so much if things are exactly perfect. You could stress out all the time about, am I using the right microphone for the podcasting, or am I editing things just right, and waste a bunch of time on things that don't make money, or focusing and narrowing in on what does make money and then calling it a day. And so that was skill number 4, productivity. And then finally, skill number 5, planning and architecture. So once your business is rocking and rolling, it's tempting to dial it back, to give up, to put one foot on the brake, to get bored, whatever it is, and just move on to the next thing. What you want to do instead is scale. If you're doing like a daily podcast, like I'm doing here, then start looking towards, well, can I just be the person that just speaks some stuff out and someone else worries about editing, posting, scheduling, marketing, or do I want to, or even just the fact of making a daily podcast, right? For the longest time, I thought that posting to a blog once a month was a lot. Then I thought recording a podcast every week was a lot. Now I'm doing a podcast every day, so I'm scaling it. And many times you'll want, and here's the thing too, is many times you'll want to have some kind of a vision, right? For what your website looks like, what your sales letter looks like, what your membership site dashboard looks like. And the other thing that I really recommend, and I hope that you get to at some point, is producing software. I didn't say coding, but I said that if you are teaching stock trading, make a stock trading software. If you're teaching weight loss, make some kind of a weight loss calculator or something like that. And people say, I can't do software. I don't know anything about it. Well, figure out how to explain your wishes. Figure out how to explain what it is that you want. Take a blank piece of paper and draw what the login screen, or what the first screen of a piece of software looks like. Draw out what the buttons are, or what that software displays, or maybe write just a couple sentences explaining what someone does when they log in, what kind of tasks can they do, what sort of things does the software tell them, and just, you don't have to write a lick of code or know even what it should be coded in, but think about that. Know what you want, know what the vision is, and be able to draw it out, sketch it out for that piece of software. That way you can hand it off to someone else if your business is at that point, even if it's a quick calculator, a quick quiz, something like that. Get good at planning and architecting something, even if you don't know how to get from point A to point B. That's why you hire people for that. But know what the point B is, know what it is you're trying to build, or not trying to build, know what it is that you're building, because why try? Just do it. Those are 5 entrepreneurial skills that you should develop or sharpen as a work-at-home internet marketer. 1, selling. 2, content creation. 3, basic website creation. 4, productivity. And 5, planning and architecture. So I hope that helped, and I hope that if you're in my situation where if you have some kind of a skill and you want to become some kind of like an author, a speaker, a coach, something like that, and you say, okay, well, this internet thing, I need a presence there, I need a website, I need a funnel, I need a podcast, I need a Facebook fan page. How do I do it? Well, it's by figuring out these skills: selling, content creation, website creation, maintenance, productivity, planning, and architecture. By the way, if you love the show, go to iTunes, give us a rating at robertplank.com/iTunes. If you want to be on the show, you have a question or whatever, go to robertplank.com/ask. And as we're winding down, I'm just telling you, if you feel like there's all these things to know and to learn, I can relate. Maybe you didn't know you were going to have to figure out podcasting or YouTube videos when you got started, but that's just today's day and age. The good news is, well, the bad news is it's super competitive now. The good news is it's easy enough for anyone to do, so there's no excuse. Go ahead and do it right now, and check out our course, incomemachine.com, to get that sales funnel set up, and make sure to listen to us, subscribe to us at robertplank.com. I'll catch you later. Bye now.